I also would love to start us out today with an acknowledgement. We would love to acknowledge that we are on the indigenous land of Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land. In Issaquah specifically, the Snoqualmie Indian tribe, and in Everett, including the Stillaguamish, Snohomish, and Tulalip tribes, and Snoqualmie Indian tribe. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial. And I will pass it to Deidre to introduce our teacher today.
So, as I said, thank you everybody for being here. It's nice to see some of your faces who I haven't seen in a long time. I'm still getting used to these little squares. I'm not 100% sold, but they have been very beneficial throughout this time away with connecting us. And so I'm very grateful for Zoom as being the great connector. And this month, we're focusing on trainings to help us prepare to go back into the theaters. And as we all know, things are happening and changing every day. I don't know if you follow We See You White American Theater, but there have been people who are saying no. For the first time that some of these people in power have ever heard people say no. So I think that that is very promising. And it also, I stand in solidarity with the folks at Eugene O'Neill Theater, the apprentices and the writing assistants who have for a long time been appreciated and exploited. So this conversation today makes me very excited so that we're not just stepping in blindly and preparing ourselves for things to be just like they were. Because if that was your idea, you're in for a rude awakening. And I'm so happy to bring to the table today to talk with us Jay Woods, who was here with us at our very first Next Stage offering. And today, Jay is going to help us to really talk about how we can bring anti-racism practices into our own individual art disciplines and what impact that can make. So Jay is a director, an educator, an actor, choreographer, all of the hyphens. So just be ready. And someone I am happy to call friend, I give you Jay Woods.
Hey, y'all. Some of you I know, some I don't. Thank you, Deidre. Thank you, Jess. Yes, my name is Jay Woods. My pronouns are she and they. And I am primarily a director, an educator, performer, arts administrator here in Seattle, originally from New York. So those of you who are not familiar with me, I do not speak West Coast. I speak East Coast. And that's not a slight on the West Coast, right? The West Coast, y'all have your own way, your own groove, right? And so we just learn how to kind of do that waltz together, if that makes sense. So a lot of my consonants, they hit hard. My voice is low. So just know that that's just my voice. so we'll rock like that, if that makes sense. I'd love to go around really quick and hear your name, pronoun, and then your primary artistic disciplines. So you can feel free to share them all, but sort of what you arrive in this space, having seen the title of the workshop, Applying Anti-Racism in Your Own Individual Practice. You may have many hyphens, but maybe you arrive here and you say, I'm here as a lighting designer. I'm here as, right? And I want to know specifically how to apply that within my practice. So that would be, so your name, your pronouns, your primary discipline that you're arriving in this space with. And then if in the chat, you could post at any time your access needs. And you can post that by saying, my access needs are met. You can say, I have access needs, but I am tending to them. You can say, my access needs are, my internet is really spotty, my camera might go out. I have a screaming child in the back, I might be on mute and need to use the chat, so on and so forth, right? So you can just put that into the chat. So I'm gonna start off with Bruce. What's up, Bruce?
Hi, I'm Bruce Monroe. My pronouns are he, him. And I'm here as a conductor, even though I do lots of other things. I feel that's the most important thing for me to get out of this as a conductor.
Thank you. And then pick a pal.
Bobby.
Hi, pal. Hi, I'm Bobby Katula, actor, singer, and fundraising professional. Is that all I need to do? She, her. Daniel Wolfert, go for it.
Hey gang, my name is Daniel Wolfert, he, him, and I'm a musical theater songwriter.
Beautiful. Pick a pal.
Sarah DeGrave? You're my pal.
Yay. Sarah DeGrave, she, her pronouns. Primarily a performer, but also wanting to apply the lens to moving into creating more of my own work and producing, and so holding that space for people in a different way.
Wonderful.
Oh, and let's see, Sarah Harlot.
Hi, my name is Sarah Harlot, and I am an actor, but I would say that I'm here primarily, well, for both being an actor, but I'm also an arts educator, and I think that's a really important thing I need to look at a little bit more deeply. And I'm going to call on Amy Lazert.
Hi, Amy Lazert, she, her. I'm glad that you went first because I was wondering what you were going to pick. If you were going to pick your, all the things that you do in the theater, Sarah, or the thing that you do at Cornish, which is teach. So I'm going to, like, if I have to choose one, I have not done as much exploration in the work that I do sometimes in props and costumes. So I think I would choose that one, although I may find myself in conversation talking about some of the work that I do at Cornish teaching there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I have to pick somebody. Marianne DeFazio.
Hello, I'm Mariana DeFazio. I'll use she, her pronouns. I'm an actor. I'm a dialect coach. I'll be teaching as an adjunct professor this fall. And I recently joined the board of my choir. And where this kind of work is very new and is very unfamiliar to them. So we've created a new subcommittee for equity and diversity, which I'm on, and I'm sort of branching out into the choral music.
Great, thank you. I think we have 3 more folks, maybe. You could do a little funfetti thing in your screen so you can alert folks of who's left. But I don't think Alexandra's gone.
That's right. Hi, I am Alexandra Platasulak. My pronouns are she, her. I am a performer and a voice teacher and coach, and I run a multi-teacher studio. So I'm showing up here hoping that I can take as much of whatever we learn here, we discuss back to the studio so I can share it with my fellow teachers and performers. I think, I'm also in Chicago. I don't remember all of what we're supposed to say.
Beautiful. You said it perfectly.
Oh, buddy. Do I need a buddy? Did Eric go or?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Eric, he, him, and I am an artistic director. I see Jay every couple of weeks, but I figured I'd drop into this one and see how it was going.
Good to see you.
Yeah, and my buddy is Henry, I think.
I think it is. Howdy, y'all. My name's Henry Nelton. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm here primarily as a director.
Cool. Thanks, Henry. Yeah, I didn't mean to necessarily overcomplicate, choose a discipline. It's just that as we start to, when I ask certain questions, you may choose to interrogate that of yourself as you arrive in space as an educator or a director. But there may be something that resonates with you that says, actually, I want to touch on that as an actor, or as Bobby, I want to touch on that as a fundraiser, so on and so forth. it's all the same human. So we can't divorce it all, right? But it's just about what you may want to bring into focus. So that's wonderful. Thank you. A couple of things before we begin. I have two agreements that I think we can rock with in this space. And some of you are familiar with me, so you've heard these before. But my favorite actually comes from Nicole Brewer. And Nicole Brewer shares in her agreements often to speak in drafts. And what I really love about that is that we understand when we say that, when we call that to mind, we understand that there is no such thing as a perfect statement, ever. We don't ever say, I love you the same way, even if we've said it 3,472 times to the same person. It's been said in a different way, different tone, different cadence every single time, right? And then, of course, the actions associated with that differ each time as well. So what I'm speaking right now, though I've taught this at this point a few hundred times, is that the words that are coming out of my mouth have never come out in this order. So it's just kind of calling into mind that we're actually always speaking in draft. And so then we should extend ourselves a little bit of grace to know that every time we open our mouths to speak, we're really rough writing that draft out loud. And it's kind of, sometimes it's like, oh, ooh, yeah, you're right. I am always speaking in a rough draft. We are. And so when you understand that of yourself, you understand that of others. So if we're getting into some hard material, or if we're getting into a space where somebody may feel they don't have as much experience in that area, right? A lower level of fluency than others, that lower level fluency has to be okay. Because to admit I don't know is to reveal a space of abundant possibility. So I like to invite I don't know into space. I don't know is not a deviation from expert, right? I don't know is not a deviation from expert, as characteristics of white supremacist culture would have us believe. You may have heard me say that white supremacy star player, its most beloved player, is a 50 plus, maybe 45 plus year old, wealthy white man. I didn't say rich. I said wealthy, as in millions, tens of millions, millions of dollars wealthy, okay? 50 plus, and let him also benefit from pretty privilege. That's it, right? A cis-het, wealthy, 50 plus year old white man who benefits from pretty privilege. That person is crowned expert in the eyes of white supremacy. And anybody, right, it likes to say anybody who deviates from that individual is automatically less than expert. That is one of the underlying factors of why most folks can't say, I don't know. It feels uncomfortable, it feels gross, because if you say, I don't know, then are you supposed to be in that space? If you're on a design team and you say, I don't know, does that mean you did your homework? Does that mean you know what you're doing? Does that mean? And actually, that's a crock of malarkey. Because when you can admit that you don't know, you render the space available to get to the knowing. All of a sudden, we can all hop into the train and we can figure it out together. But if you want to act like you know, log jam, crash, boom, bang. We're not moving it. We're not grooving it. We might as well all go home if we all want to act like we're the expert. As far as my knowledge is concerned, I don't believe that among the 7 billion people that exist on the earth, that anyone has been identified as God. I don't know if that's true. If it is, somebody go ahead and point them out. I got some questions. but if God doesn't exist here on the planet Earth, then nobody's an expert. A rocket scientist who has several PhDs in physics and space particles and all kinds of stuff, that person has to say that they don't know. If they want to pretend like they're the expert, well, then they've solved all of the mysteries of the universe, haven't they? So they can hang it up. Okay, I'm going to tangent. Y'all get it. So you're going to speak in drafts and you're going to say, I don't know in this space. And when you leave this space, you're going to say, I don't know, but boy, I sure would like to find out. Incredible. Because when you pretend, then you're just inviting ignorance. You're saying, in this moment, I'm choosing to remain ignorant. Wow, that's a choice. So we're going to speak in draft here, and we're going to say, I don't know. Is that cool? Beautiful. Let's start with a journal assignment. 2 minutes. What does conflict mean to you? 2 minutes. What does conflict mean to you? And you can list, you can bullet, you can write however you like. Doodle. What does conflict mean to you? 2 minutes. I'll start a timer. About 60 seconds. And take 30 seconds to find a good place to pause. You can always return. Okay, follow-up question. When I asked you that, did defensiveness rise in your body? Did a flight response rise in your body? If so, can you identify that on a scale of 1 to 10? And can you identify where in your body it arrived? In the chest, a tightening, a gasp of breath, shallow access to breath? Did your skin crawl? What was it? I know you're ready to move on when you put your finger on your nose. And now I just made everybody boop themselves. It's my favorite thing about Zoom. What is the difference between being invited and being welcomed? About 90 seconds. What is the difference between being invited and being welcomed? Take about 30 seconds to find a place to pause on that thought. Okay, next question. I'm going a little quick here because this is part of like really a 3-hour workshop. And that's one way, that's a shortened version. And then a full version is like about 9 hours of study. So I'm condensing into an hour, which is fine because these assignments are good, these little thought provokers. And then what's really going to be the meat and potatoes is that each individual discipline that has arrived in this room asks specific questions about their own practice. So that's how we're kind of ride that wave. So this final question is, what identities that belong to you do you benefit from? And you may think about this as, what identities that belong to you that do not cause you harm for having that identity? Say it one more time. Which identities belong to you that benefit you? If you cannot readily identify that, you may think of it as identities that belong to you which do not cause you harm just for the simple sake of having that identity. Just to stimulate the mind, I just typed some things in the chat just off the top of my head that you may consider. These things are you a parent? Are you a sibling? Those things work. At your place of work, do you hold a power position? And are you in charge of hiring and firing, or do you make budgetary decisions? So all kinds of things, not just race, sexual orientation, gender. Are you able-bodied? Are you hearing privileged? Take about 30 seconds longer to consider that point. And as you wrap that up, can put your pen down and close your eyes and consider if that assignment was easy for you to do, to list the identities which provide you benefits, or rather do not bring you harm for the simple sake that they exist. Think about others for whom that list may be very short. Think of the folks for whom that list is very long. Okay, open your eyes. Take a couple of breaths. It's a little bit of an icky space. But we got to get uncomfortable in order to talk about all of this. It is not going down to the street to get an ice cream, okay, and then skip to our loo through a field of daisies. That's not this workshop. Anything that jumped out for folks in any of the questions that I just asked? We'll have time for a few folks to share something that's resonating with you as you are going through those couple of journal exercises. We'll have a moment to share a little bit about that before we continue. You can just hop right into space. It's an open forum. I don't want to have to be like, Sarah, you go. I think you could just come right in.
I had a response. The response that came up for me in the second or third question about the difference between being invited and being welcomed, like my immediate visualization was like if someone came into my home, what the difference would be. And like inviting feels like permission to be in my house, and welcoming feels like attention and consideration and like doing. And that really struck me as like, oh, that kind of analogy helps me see like actions that I can take of like, if someone was staying at my house, like there would be actions. I would offer them a beverage. I would, make sure they had clean sheets, thinking about it in a more active way.
Thank you, Sarah. So as theaters are inviting us back into space, we need to ask, what are they doing to welcome us back into space? As directors begin to run rehearsals and be involved in casting, I'm speaking to me, what are we doing to make sure that our actors are welcome in this space and not just invited for the sake of their talent? Anybody else want to speak to invitation versus welcoming?
I'll jump in. Yeah. It was so funny. I immediately started thinking about, before I'm even at it, like a place of sort of, if I'm invited, the question came up for me, if I don't go, will they miss me? Can I get out of this easy? Will the other people realize I'm missing? Whereas welcome, I thought I'm expected and maybe needed. You can't get out of that one so easily.
Yes, absolutely. Be expected. I love that. Other responses to any of the prompts? Time for a couple more folks to share. Just come right. I can't see if people.
I was just gonna pop in. The thing that I was surprised in my own mind with the invited and welcomed is I thought about people who share that they've been invited places with me. Like people who are like, I got invited to who, like, I thought about like an invitation, like I got to go to the party, and how that has sometimes made me feel like if I like that fitting in culture, and like it took me to a different place than I was expected. Like when a lot of people get invited somewhere and want to talk about it, and what that kind of does, and how I actually don't feel welcomed and don't feel like I want to be invited into that space if that's the culture around it sometimes. So I was surprised by that thought. But go, Daniel, your turn.
Thanks. Same question. When I was mulling this one over, what came to mind was a question of where does the accommodation or the host party's attention on the guest party start, and where does it stop? And what came to mind was when you're invited somewhere but not necessarily welcomed, it feels to me like you are brought in, but the accommodation stops at the door. Once you're in the door, whatever happens, happens. Whereas being welcomed, the accommodation continues in once you're in the space. And I feel like that actually has a lot of interesting similarities with the idea of like being invited to perform in something, to audition for something, to be part of a program. Because if the host party's only concern is to get your butt in the door, and then whatever happens to you when you're there is not their concern, that's very different than they want to get your butt in the door and then address your needs and desires and work together.
This is great. It's kind of, I see you, Bobby. This is bubbling up, and this is good. So when we're talking about the invitation, you talk about how does the room feel like they were just trying to get a butt in the room and then exit the butt. That was a very unfortunate statement. I'm gonna move on. The interview is on both sides of the table. And I've said this to many college students before the pandemic, and they were like, yeah, sure, but like, I need the job, right? I need to, my play is going to get pitched here. And I'm just like, well, actually, we need to take a look at the currency of ego and the currency of spirit. Those are different. Your ego currency may be well plumped by taking your play to one of these very large, sparkly, primarily white institutions who have all of the resources, as in money, to support you. And so you may be invited in to workshop your play or even do a world premiere of your play. But have you been welcomed into that space? And when you were a part of that pitching process or audition process or college interview process or whatever it is, did it seem like they actually wanted you there? They're trying to check a box. What are they actually going to do for that spiritual currency? When I talk about spiritual currency, I'm meaning of you, but I'm also meaning of the work that you're bringing to the table for them to consider. What's going to happen to the energy of that work in a space that only invited you there but didn't welcome you? You have the absolute authority to say, actually, my piece is going to receive no nourishment here. Might receive some money, but they will otherwise not care about us. They're not going to check in. They're not going to care to give us the best director or the best this or the best that. They're just going to be like, yeah, here you go. Here's some money and go do whatever you want to do. Oh yeah, you're a good teacher. Great. Here's the class. Here's what I want you to go teach. Go get out of here. Go do that. Jesus, a director who's curating a cast. If all they do is go, well, this person's talented, they're in the cast. Is that person also an asshole? If you've only invited them into the space and they were in and out, it means you didn't take any time to get to know them. So now have you automatically bred the seeds of harm within your cast before you even got to rehearsal? Because you didn't take the time to investigate the human that possesses the talent. So the difference between just inviting to the casting room and actually welcoming into the casting room. So when we talk about the difference between invitation and welcoming, we're actually already starting to talk about some of the bedrocks of anti-racist practice. or disrupting the characteristics of white supremacist culture, which have curated many of the processes that we engage in within the theater industrial complex. True? Other responses, starting with Bobby.
Yes, and it depends. The first thing, the conflict for me, the two different versions, I divided them up, is if I trust the human that I have a conflict with, then it's usually resolved and both grow. But if there's a person who I don't trust, that's when I tighten up and my brain freezes and I can't resolve it. Mm-hmm. It's happened recently, and it still keeps me up at night.
Mm. I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you for
sharing. Me
too. Anybody else want to speak about conflict? Yeah, conflict.
I'll jump in on that one. I had a similar kind of first thought of that, conflict is, uncomfortable. There's, my face gets flushed and my shoulders tighten up and I don't like it. But through the discomfort and the instability, there's growth, either on my part or the part of the other person, or hopefully collectively we grow. And I think that's, the hopeful outcome of the conflict. And as Bobby mentioned, that perhaps if either one party or neither party are willing to go into that growth place, then the conflict is just uncomfortable and conflict.
I'm going to lead into conflict for a moment, and then we're going to go to the next exercise. So conflict is the whole thing, right? So that's the whole thing in theater. That's what we're dealing with right now. That is what every executive leadership team and board is. They're fighting each other. The board's like, I joined the board because I'm pretty sure I joined a country club and I signed that 10K or 5K and higher check so I can be part of the theater country club, right? I can sit with the cool kids. I get front row seats. I get the cocktail hour on opening night. Like, I'm wined and dined. I'm a board member, but board, it's actually volunteer. It's actually board service. It's actually service. So you may be investing your money, but you're also supposed to be investing your time into the mission and vision of the organization and helping that executive staff steward that mission and vision of that theater. You're actually on board service, and it's not a country club. So there's already some conflict there that artistic and managing directors have to grapple with their boards. So artistic and managing directors could want to facilitate a whole bunch of change. And right now they're bucking up against this archaic system of an overseeing board who can overrule and do overrule the desires of an artistic and managing director. So that is something to know. That's not an excuse for when theaters are lagging behind or they're struggling to effectuate change, but it is something which exists and it grinds. So right now we're needing to look at who's being invited to the board and actually welcomed, and how are we extending that welcoming invitation to the board. When we want to quote unquote diversify staff, if we just invite them into the staff and we don't actually change anything, we don't set up the accommodations, we don't look at the many ways in which the system does not work for global majority employees and artists, if we don't look at that, we're not the cleanup crew. Global majority artists are not the cleanup crew. We don't just come in and then bibbity bobbity boop, everything is fixed. That is a measure of white supremacy. It's like, oh, you just get them in on the bottom line, put them in the box office, get a little front of house manager. We could trick everybody. Everybody on the board, though, in the executive leadership team, they're still white. So, but if they don't look too deep, they won't see that. So we just kind of, it's just costumes, mannequins, ornamental changes, not functional. You need to commit in deed as you do in word. And that requires digging into conflict. And if we start to see conflict as an opportunity to gain deeper understanding, as opposed to an opportunity to scream at each other and to keep from wanting to smack somebody in the mouth, right? Or any other various physical reaction we may have to conflicts, if we instead try to see it as just an opportunity to gain deeper clarity, as a person who is really eager to listen, really eager to understand, increase that desire to understand, even if this person is really getting you, right? Really grinding your gears. How can we all learn, myself included, because my gears can be grinded, okay? So I have to learn how that arrives in me. What is that feeling of defensiveness? What is that feeling of flight as it arrives in me so I can stay? Because if we choose to say nothing or we choose to run away, it ain't gonna get done. Nothing will get done. If we're sitting in a production meeting and somebody says something off the wall, we cannot let the production meeting continue, go home, call our friend and be like, Mariana, you won't believe what Sarah said in this production meeting, girl. And then I talked to Mariana for about 25 minutes, all about the dumb stuff that Sarah said. And now I've expended 20 minutes worth of energy that actually could have took 2 minutes in the moment when Sarah said something, and then we could have kept it rocking. So I asked you to look at those identities. I'm going a mile a minute, y'all. Let me know if I'm going too fast. I asked you to look at those identities because check this out. The closer you are right now in this world, and probably for still another little while at least, the closer you are to that one star player of white supremacy in identity, the safer you are. You're not going to lose your job. You're not going to get fired. And if you were to be fired, guess what? There are so many other jobs that you can apply for and will very likely be hired. Your job security is high. Your ability to maintain relationships and not have fear of consequences and all of this stuff is high. That's a benefit. So if you find yourself in close proximity to that cishet middle-aged white dude, in close-ish proximity, know that in that production meeting, you shouldn't be like, oh no, I don't want to stir the pot. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Maybe I'll say something a little bit later. No, you speak up. There's a difference between if Deidre and I are sitting there feeling like you need to be the savior and come to Deidre and I's defense. But if you don't see Deidre and I saying anything, you know we heard it. If you heard it, we heard it. So then you just offer it into space and you go, hey, Daniel, I heard you say that, colorblind casting is okay. I heard you say, can you actually repeat what you just said for me? Can you say that in a different way? Because if I'm giving everybody an opportunity to speak in draft, Daniel, who is sitting in the room as the casting director, may have said, oh, no. Actually, I meant color conscious. Sorry. Oh, great. Well, now that's great. That's done right there. And now the whole room can breathe and all of that stuff and everybody's fine. But actually, if that's what he meant, now Daniel is repeating himself, right? Can you say what you just said in a different way for me, right? And I'm really asking him. I'm really saying, hey, Daniel, I'm trying to understand actually what you just said. Would you mind saying that in a different way for me? I'm not saying, hey, Daniel, I don't really think I know what you just said. Can you repeat yourself for me? That is called attacking him. And in this moment, this first moment, I want to invite Daniel, welcome Daniel to be speaking in draft. And I can say, Daniel, can you actually say that for me one more time? And so now he says it because I'm doing one of two things. Maybe I heard him and I felt that it's definitely wrong, but I myself don't know how to address it. And that happens to a lot of folks. A lot of folks will sit in a production meeting or at curriculum meeting, so on and so forth, right? And will say, something about that doesn't sit well with me. Let me think on that. And the moment passes and now the meeting's done and you go home and you're like, I don't know what that was about. And then you call Bobby. You're like, Bobby, did you hear that too? And Bobby goes, yeah. What do you think that was about? I don't know. That that sure was weird. And now we got people talking about people behind their back now, trying to figure it out, trying to see, did they mean this? Did they mean that? Now we got a whole hullabaloo for no reason. We could have just said, Daniel, can you say what you just said again? I'm trying to really understand and hear you. Would you mind saying what you said in a different way? Then when he repeats himself for the whole table, for the whole room, there's going to be at least one other person who pops up and goes, I see what Jess did there. Yeah, I don't think that is going to fly either. We need to take a moment. And Deidre can say, yeah, actually, I don't know, Daniel. I'm actually having a hard time understanding you too. Anybody else? And you bring everybody in. So it's not on one person who thinks it's odd. And then, maybe they have a low level of fluency with regards to what was said. Nobody is asking any of us to have a PhD in white supremacist culture and in anti-racism. Nobody's asking that. We're asking, can you speak up? This is actors in a rehearsal room when stage managers, directors, other cast members, right? Crew are maybe doing something a little off the wall. How can we start to incorporate, I heard you say, I don't think I'm understanding you very clearly. I'm really trying to hear you, right? Articulating that. I'm really trying to hear you. Would you mind saying that for me in a different way? Those two things are so powerful, right? I can say to Alexandra, I heard you say llamas come from Pluto. Do I have that right? And Alexandra will be like, yes, absolutely. Okay, wonderful. That's what I thought that I heard, right? So it can be used for affirming, and then it can also be used for stuff that's messed up, right? I heard you say this, and then Alexandra goes, oh my God, no, llamas aren't from Pluto, they're from Venus. Whew, thank you, right? I'm allowing Alexandra a moment to edit herself. And so that's already a tool to diffuse a situation if it can be diffused, which oftentimes it can be because we're human and we're going to say stuff in error because we're always speaking in draft. We're always speaking in draft. And so I think it's a powerful tool. One, to really let other folks know you are listening to them. And two, to give an opportunity for the room to hear it be repeated, and then a team can solve that problem. The team can get to that deeper understanding. It doesn't have to turn into a screaming match where people are slamming doors and having a tantrum. So how does this apply to applying anti-racism into your own artistic practice? One, it's about increasing your capacity to speak up. That I can't impress upon that enough. I had a student at Carnegie Mellon say, well, I'm a lighting designer. What the heck, I'm sitting back there in the dark, minding my own business, messing with the lights. I often just disappear. And I'm like, you haven't disappeared. You are a key member of the production. You are a human who has cognitive function and the ability to open your mouth. And they were like, oh, yeah, it's true. That's true. And I'm like, yeah, dude, you're back there. You are a supreme listener. You're in the hot seat. You can hear a whole host of things going on. And if you just sit back there and keep the lip zipped, you are putting fuel to the harm fire. You're letting things get exacerbated. You're letting things, right, maintain status quo. How many times have y'all been in a production meeting where somebody, right, usually during tech, starts screaming or getting some level of irate, and everybody just sits there and lets them have that tantrum till it's done, and then they'll continue the meeting? Raise your hand, you've been in a situation like that. I'm gonna tell you this, not in my tech, not in the tech that I run as a director, because I first and foremost am nobody's mama or auntie. So I'm never gonna yell at anybody. So in the spaces that I curate, if somebody is gonna be raising their voice, we're no longer making the play. Something else has happened. I mean, truly, something else has happened. None of us in the theater, and if you are, please raise your hand. That's incredible, are brain surgeons saving children from brain cancer. If that's not present, why are we screaming at each other? Speak up. That's like, hey, Sarah, would you like to, let's take a break, right? Somebody could at least say it. They don't know how to deal with it, right? Not everybody can deal with when somebody is screaming, right? There's any kind of number of triggers and all kinds of things, right? I'm not suggesting that every single person would be capable of diffusing that particular situation, but at least one person can speak up and say, hey, folks, I wonder if we could take a 10 and then go get the producer, go get the person who is in charge to come and talk with Sarah. Sarah, what do you need in this moment? Is there anything that we can do to support you, right? The first thing shouldn't be, Sarah, get out. But if Sarah's been made to actually have a full-blown tantrum, something else is happening that isn't just, why isn't the wheat stick here for scene 5? If Sarah is screaming about a wheat stick, she's not screaming about a wheat stick. Okay, so we have to get into what is that. So it's about being able to get a little bit more comfortable with this word conflict, and getting comfortable with saying, I don't know. Because it's also easy for Henry to say, I don't really know what's going on here, Eric, but something about this conversation or something about rehearsal last night really rubbed me the wrong way. And I think to start rehearsal tomorrow, we might need X and X to kind of just, it might take 5 minutes. I don't know, but I do know that I have a feeling that something about the energy changed and it wasn't good. And before it spirals into a black cloud of doom, I'd love to address it now. Whereas so many people would be like, well, I don't really know what that was. And maybe it's just me, so And then you throw it away. And then all of a sudden you get a post-mortem where actors are like, we hated each other and I wanted to do this and there were so many problems, because actors won't speak up for themselves, right? They want to please the director. They want to please a theater company. It's not in an actor's first instinct to say, hey, a whole bunch of problems are happening. And they want the show to go on, right? They want the director and the theater company to be happy about that product. So whatever harm might be happening in the process, well, that's it. We got to drive to that product. If you don't tend to the people in that process, there won't be a product. If you gut the spiritual currency in the room, you will eviscerate any potential for that quote product to arrive on stage on opening night. If you allow the spiritual currency of your room to be gutted, good luck. Does that make sense, y'all? I'm trying to give you as much as possible in the time. So I think we can open up to questions now for the last little bit. Yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
I just had a recent experience where the spiritual side of things were great, but some of the production elements were not. And so I'm one to speak up. I think a lot of you know that. But it came down to, you speak up and the production staff didn't take care of it. And so the cast just took care of it together. So it was a bonding moment for all of us. But sometimes even when you speak up, you're not heard. So anyway, that happens too.
Mm-hmm. That definitely happens.
But I think that
perfect all the time. Mm-hmm.
That the director's spiritual setup was strong enough that we felt bonded enough to work together.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Any other questions that pertains to your own discipline that you're wondering? I'd like to ask this specific question about my classroom or about this. Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I've been sort of thinking about for a while is in costume design and prop design, you work with symbols so often, and many times you are using stereotypes. And I had sort of this moment while I was watching King of the Yees like 4 or 5 years ago. And I was with the students at Cornish. So I'm surrounded by younger folks, and it's a senior matinee. So we're looking at older folks directly across from us because it was done in the round. And there was a scene where the ensemble cast comes out as older people, and they're all wearing these floppy brimmed cloth hats. And in this moment, that hat was a perfect quick change item to let everybody know who we were looking at, right? Who these 3 ensemble cast members were in this scene. And everybody got it all at the same time. The folks across from us, the folks I was sitting with, and just sort of wondering, I've been asking the question of myself, like, what test can we use to make sure the symbols that we're using are not harmful symbols, but are symbols that are helping us communicate what we need to communicate best, right? And that's just something I've been wrestling with. And I was kind of wondering if any other designers, but I think might be the only one, we're also wrestling with that.
Mm-hmm. Amy, I think, thank you for that offering. I think you're already on the right track by already asking that question. The fact that you're already thinking about that, you're already on the right path. And I think that it's about, sometimes the symbols are harmful and they're supposed to be harmful. So we have to be able to do that, right? Theater is to provoke. And if the symbol is supposed to be harmful, well, then that is something that is agreed upon by the whole team, the whole cast, the director, the theater. Everybody understands that we're going to use this, right? Welcome to Braggsville at Book It Repertory Theater. There was a moment in the play where a few men appeared in full KKK garb, got dressed in full KKK robes, the whole thing on stage. Now, they could have said, oh, well, will this be harmful? Yeah, it's harmful, but it doesn't, it diminishes the drama, and it takes away from the point of the playwright if you were to make a decision to say, oh, well, this is too harmful, so we won't do that. Now, if it's not in the play, dramaturgically, if it's not in the play, and somebody's like, oh, I want to heighten the racism here, I want to make it really clear that this, like, whatever old man, this dad really doesn't like this interracial relationship. So, you know, when so-and-so comes to the house to like pick up their date, we're going to just have him arrive with a KKK hood on. Ask yourself why you're doing that. Ask yourself what's underneath that. Does it improve the drama? Yes or no? Does it improve the drama? Why or why not? Are you inserting something in there that doesn't belong there, and you're doing it for buzz's sake? You're doing it because you want to pat yourself on the back for being, quote, brave enough to do something extreme. So that's one answer to what you just said. The other one is being very clear about what you do and don't know as a designer, especially as a costume designer. Be clear with your actors. Hey, this is an area, right? This is content. This is a story. This is a time that actually I have a lower level of fluency in with regards to my work to date. But I am so excited. I've been doing extensive research and been talking hand in hand with the director and the dramaturg about how best to approach this show. And I so would love to be in collaboration with you with regards to how we can best tell this story on a whole and per your individual character, how you feel about your character, the role you're playing. I think it's so important to open that communication and to be very clear. And when you don't know, you don't know. And I think it's important when you read a script, if you are like, you know what, I'm a lighting designer who has zero experience lighting darker skin tones. I'm a lighting designer who has worked mostly in primarily white theaters, who have programmed primarily white shows. So now I have become accustomed, and I might be a great lighting designer. I might be really well known, work in opera houses, Broadway, everywhere. I might be very skilled, But if you ask me to light a show with dark-skinned Black actors, I might not be able to light that show. And so instead of fueling ego, you may say, wow, I feel so honored that you would ask me to design this show. But I wonder if I could be an associate to somebody who may actually have expertise in this area so that I can learn, right? Take the learning opportunity. I sure would love to learn. I've been offered maybe 5 out of my 112 shows that I've done. 5 shows that don't center and prioritize white skin. So you just have to be aware. It's about, I don't want to use the term woke, but in this particular moment, I mean, everybody needs to wake the F up and just be aware of what you know and what you don't know. And be okay with what you don't know, because why? I don't know reveals a space of abundant possibility, and we can get to the knowing. Does that start to answer your question, Amy? Yeah, go ahead.
What if you're casting? Well, here we go. I was double cast in the show where I played someone who was white and Jewish and someone who was Palestinian and Muslim. Same actress, 2 different roles. And I didn't find out till after the show was over that one of the Palestinian Muslim people who were in the show was aghast and angry that I played both people because I wasn't Muslim and I wasn't Palestinian. And I kind of went, okay, after the fact. And I felt like I should have known. I did approach the director about it. I said, are you sure you want me for this? Because they went, yes, we want you for this because you fit that one and you're an actress. So as an actor, what kind of responsibility do I have? Well, I guess that's kind of from my own heart, but trying to educate myself on not being miscast in roles because I'm privileged. I don't know where to even start. I thought I was getting all the training I need, and then I was faced with that at the end of the show by one of the actors.
Thank you for offering that, Bobby. I heard you say, what can actors do to avoid being miscast or to enter into genuine conversations with a director, a casting director about the show to ensure that they don't take a role that is not meant for them?
Right.
So that two folks are at fault for that, right? The director should not have given you that, right? So the director's wrong in that case. And then that's hard because when you're an actor, it's already a quote subservient role, right? You're not in power. The director is saying, yes, Jess, you can play, Nina in The Heights, because you got dark eyes and dark hair, right? There's a lot of, there's many lily white, right? White passing Latina women. So, nobody will know. Come on, Jess, you can sing and you got moves, so come on in. If Jess is like, wow, the director really thinks that's okay, Jess might go, okay. And how many people have done that across the United States? I can't tell you how many white Ninas, Filipino Ninas, etc., that there have been, because the director and the casting director in the theater, ultimately it says the whole organization condones having a white Nina in The Heights. Whoa, that's wild. So, it's up to both. It's up to Jess to be like, while I'm flattered you'd consider me for the lead, I really came here to audition for the ensemble. And if Jess should have even auditioned for the ensemble, right? But maybe, right, in the ensemble for In the Heights, could be a couple of white folks, couple of our global minority pals, could be, right? In the featured dancers, perhaps, if you got it like that. But to say, hey, Jess, we sure loved your audition. Would you like to be Nina? Jess is gonna have to be like, no. Thanks so much. And then Jess might consider not being in the show at all because that director is absolutely out of their damn mind. So it's up to both folks to know that no, Jess cannot play a Latina from Washington Heights, New York, who is Puerto Rican. No, she cannot do that. So does that make sense? So I'm not trying to like use your example, Bobby, to like slam what happened in that show, but I am using it as an example of both sides are to do in that dance. You are, as an actor, especially coming out of pandemic, you're like, yeah, I can play that role. And then you did ask her, are you sure about this other one? And she's like, yeah, because you fit this one. So like, don't worry about the other one. She wanted to do a show so bad that she decided she would make that ethical mistake in favor of her being able to scratch her director's itch. Right? So you got to ask folks, and you have to ask yourself, as a teacher who may program a play, as a director yourself, do you need to direct that show right now? Or are you going to have to pause? Are you going to have to say, actually, we still haven't found that actor. We got to delay the start of rehearsal. It might eat into opening weekend. But what I'm not going to do as a director is say, well, you know, we really need to get that rehearsal time. We really got to drive that opening night product. So Jess, you're going to be Nina. That's not what the writers of In the Heights wanted. That's not respecting and uplifting the playwright and the themes of that story and the people supposed to celebrate.
You know, the director was also the writer. No, I'm a liar. The producer was also the writer.
Mm-hmm. I think what you're speaking of is a thing that happens, but it's not something that happens every single day, multiple times a day around the country as people are casting shows. It happens, but that's like a rarity. And like, especially when you get into what you just said, the producer also wrote it, the director. So now you got two power things. The director is under the producer and then the writer. So they're telling the director that they're giving them the permission, which means the writer is wrong. So which means the writer just wanted their play produced. So there's so many layers, right? We got to ask ourselves, am I checking my ego at the door? Do I want my ego currency filled? Is that what I'm looking to do? Because if that's what you're looking to do, you better go on down to the pub, get a slice of pizza, and just read about a play. Talk to a friend about a play. We don't have to do them. We don't have to. It's actually hard to make theater. We can just go on down, get a pint, and talk about it. I know we got like 5 minutes left. Folks we haven't heard from. I don't know, we see Eric, Bruce, Sarah. Eric deals with me all the time. He's like, I don't need to say anything to you, Jay.
I think I don't really have I think I've got like 10 bazillion questions, but I don't have one that's sort of forming in my head right now. But what's dawning on me, a couple of things are dawning on me. One, like as theater, the whole thing about theater is we deal with, the plays are about conflict, right? Like every single play that we do is conflict, but somehow we have like such a ridiculously hard time dealing with conflict outside of the artistic thing. And then the other thing that I've been thinking a lot about is all of the different layers of the power dynamics, but also the urgency and the fear of, well, if I say no, or if I speak up, then I won't get the job again, or that person won't want to work with me again, or whatever, like all of that stupid, shitty stuff that is perpetuated, right? And the urgency too. We only have this many weeks, so we have to do that. So I'm trying to just sort of, I don't know, reflect for myself of how to acknowledge that and how to speak up about it when it pops up in the room, whatever the room is.
Absolutely. So glad that you brought up urgency. I always have to ask myself, what's underneath that urgency? Is it a rush to crown myself champion of the thing? Or is the urgency in service of the community? Which is it? One is selfish, one is selfless. Where is the urgency coming from? What's underneath it? To crown myself champion of the thing, or is it in service of community need? So as a teacher, when I create a lesson plan, Is my sense of urgency to get through the lesson plan so I can crown myself a master of making a lesson plan? Or is the urgency in service of community need, which is how I should always arrive both as a director and an educator and a leader? A leader at best is a master weaver of the skills and choices in the room. And if all you're doing is self-serving your urgency, your own matters, you can just go do it your own self. You don't need a staff. You don't need a cast. You don't need a team. Go stand on a corner and do whatever you want to do by yourself. A master weaver of the skills and choices in the room. And you better hope that that room isn't homogenous. Homogeneity begets homogeneity, and there ain't no dignity in homogeneity. A teacher, a director especially, is a curator of instinct. And if you don't create a space wherein instinct and impulse is safe to flourish, go sit down. Because if it's about just finishing the blocking and getting through that scene and slamming it through and not letting actors make choices, we don't have to be a director. We don't have to do that. We can just go watch plays. We can go be a theater critic. We don't have to direct. Directing is hard for a reason, for many reasons. What is the spiritual currency in your staff, in your classroom, in your rehearsal room? And are you catering to that, or are you catering to your own ego? Which is it? Yeah, Mariana.
I'm thinking about speaking up, and facing conflict. And sometimes I feel like, or I worry about anyway, when I bring things up or have the courage to address something, that as a white woman, somehow my comfort gets prioritized. That all of a sudden it's not about the thing that I was, that I thought it was about, or that I intended it to be about, but about we want to make sure that you're okay. And that's it flips over on itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, you say, right now, what we're doing, I didn't call that out to centralize my own well-being. I called that out to speak about this. And you just dangle the carrot again. Mm-hmm. Folks who notice that, you say, hey, in this moment, I was actually trying to decentralize whiteness. I was actually trying to agitate the power dynamic that's happening right now, that's disallowing a natural flow of genuine communication. That's actually what I was doing. Right? When somebody wants to press back and avoid, they want to dodge. That's when I invite a little bit more spice into that response. Whereas I might have said, Daniel, are you sure that you meant da, da, da? Daniel's getting all the attention today. Daniel, I heard you say this. And if it starts to get spicy, well, we can get spicy within reason, right? I'm not gonna start screaming at anybody. What I mean by spicy is I'm gonna call out what that person is doing directly. Henry, I called out the fact that this person was engaging in a little bit of sexism just now. And right now, your response to me is sexist. You're exacerbating the point. And actually, I'd like to take this moment to unpack that there's a lot of sexism in this room right now. It's a little dominant in this space. And I think before we move on, it would behoove us to tap into that and kind of, do a little midwifing of that so that it doesn't continue. And then people might feel a little bit, their, butthole might clench because you just call somebody out. And you want to know what? Nobody died. Nobody died. Right? Got tense for a moment and nobody died. About 2 more minutes will pass after that. We'll take a little sippy sip of our little coffee, our little water, and then that's what we have to realize. We actually we gotta really diffuse this oh, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to ruffle a feather. Ruffle the feather, okay? Drop down and get your eagle on. Ruffle the feather, okay? I know Deidre is dying. We're gonna end class right there, y'all.
Get your eagle on. Look, I'm gonna make a shirt that says that.
Get your eagle on. I feel like that's the perfect quote for the end of next stage. Next stage. Get your eagle on. So good, Jay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna launch this poll for y'all so that you can let us know if you feel comfortable with us archiving this online. And the purpose of that is always so that those who weren't able to attend can enjoy the wonderful wisdom from Jay Woods, and can also learn from this as well. Thank you, Jay. Deidre, I don't know. I'll start with you to close this out here.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up. You know, a lot of this work is showing up and being present, because you can be in the room, but are you really in the room? And I think one of the things that I'm taking away from what Jay shared with us is it's no longer just enough to show up to these spaces. It's not beneficial to anyone there. It's how do you use your privilege and your power and your presence to really be a member of the team who is there for the benefit of all, not just yourself. So thank you so much for showing up, and tell your friend, tell one person when you leave here something that made you comfortable or uncomfortable about this workshop today. Next up, next Thursday morning, I can't even remember the time. Afternoon?
Yeah, it's really early. It's 9:30 to 11:30. It's morning because our teacher's on Eastern time. But it is a true 2-hour training in caregiver support in the room. So this training is going to be taught by PAL, Parent Artist Advocacy League. My dear friend Rachel Spencer Hewitt is going to be leading the training, and it's all about having that equitable and accessible conversation about what does care look like in a rehearsal room space or in any space that you're involved in. So if you have ever led a space or have ever had any agency over leading a space, it's a training for you, right? We're going to talk about the philosophy of care. What is your personal philosophy about care? What does that mean? And how does it drive you to action in your space? And specifically then talking about supporting caregivers. So check it out. It's a really great resource that I'm excited to also introduce the Seattle community to PAL if you're not aware of PAL, and the resources that they provide. And if you're an independent artist and you are a parent or a caregiver, they are an amazing resource because they provide grants for parent artists and caregiver artists in order to allow them to have access to new opportunities. So check them out. They're amazing. The other thing I just want to call out about tonight is it's our last traditional evening, and our last one with Deidre. She can't be there next week. And so I just want to shout out my deepest heart of gratitude to my collaborator and my dear friend Deidre. She's amazing. She's about to change the Seattle theater community and take it by storm and create the space we all can be creative and vulnerable in, because she's freaking amazing, y'all.
Oh my gosh. Is that on the recording?
Yeah.
I might have to go back. Forever. You know, those days when you just need a little something, I'll listen to that. Thank you. Thank you, Jess. And, this is our last traditional class for this semester, I want to say, of Next Stage. And, thank you for being a co-conspirator, not just a co-host, co-collaborator, co-curator. I think that what we have started here hopefully sets a trend for other arts organizations to really put artists first. We have to stop going in thinking about product and let go of this scarcity mindset. And these are things that I am also learning too within myself, and what work I accept and what I want to do and what type of leader I want to be, because we are all leaders and you don't need someone to tell you that. So I'm so grateful for this Next Stage, the creation of it, but it wouldn't be anything if you didn't show up. So
yeah, So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes. I'll play some music and maybe y'all will be able to hear it this time and we can dance out. Thank you, everybody. You're amazing. And we hope to see you next week and next year when we start this up again.